My worst nightmare was working at Walmart. It seems simple and easy, but I still can't even go to Walmart for shopping after this incident. It happened 4 years ago when I was in the university. I used to work a late night shift at Walmart. It gave me enough time to study in the afternoon and evening. Then I would go to Walmart at 10 p.m. for my shift. My shift ends at 5 a.m. One night, as usual, I finished my study session and went to the store for my shift. Everyone left. I was there alone. I opened a few boxes in the storeroom to arrange the groceries on the aisle. No one usually visits at this time until that night. I saw someone passing by the aisle as I was busy in my work. Usually I wore headphones while working. I heard a faint whisper in my ear against my headphones. I was startled and got goosebumps. The air got cold around me. I took off my headphones immediately and checked the surroundings. No one was there. I walked through the aisle to check for the person that I just saw passing by, but he or she wasn't there either. As I was looking around, I saw that person standing at my place where I was arranging things in the aisle. "Hey," I say, rushing towards that person. But as I got there, he walked off quickly. He was running from me. "What the?" I say. I was confused. Why was he running from me? I stood there for I don't know how long. I was zoned out when a ring from the cashier startled me again. I take a deep breath and went to the cashier. "Who's there?" I say, reaching the cashier. Silence. There was no one. I was so done by then. I put my headphones back and went back to the aisle I was working on. I put on my favorite music to help me feel better. But I heard that whispering voice again. But this time it wasn't near my ear. It was in my ear, coming from my headphones. It said, "Restock the 8th aisle." I threw my headphones away, breathing hard. I forgot everything and ran for my life to my car and got home. That night was the last I spent in Walmart. The first thing I noticed was the silence. It was a wet, heavy quiet. Wrong for a place that never closes. I'd slipped into the 24-hour Walmart just after 2 a.m., desperate for cold medicine and a distraction from my insomnia. The automatic doors hissed open, then closed behind me with a final sucking sound. The usual retail roar was gone. No Muzak, no beeping scanners, no distant chatter of employees. Just the low asthmatic hum of the freezers. The fluorescent lights above flickered, casting long, skeletal shadows from the shelves of discounted laundry detergent. I grabbed a shopping cart, its wobbly wheel screeching like a dying animal in the overwhelming stillness. Clunk, screech, clunk, screech. It was the only sound I could hear besides the frantic thumping of my own heart. I started down the main aisle past electronics. The wall of televisions was on, every single one tuned to the same blue no-signal screen, reflecting my pale, wide-eyed face back at me 100 times. A shiver traced my spine. I shook it off, blaming the fever. I just needed the medicine aisle. That's when I saw the first one. An employee, a kid in a blue vest, was standing perfectly still in the cereal aisle. He wasn't stocking shelves. He was just facing them, his head tilted at an unnatural angle, as if studying the nutritional facts on a box of Lucky Charms. "Excuse me?" I called out, my voice too loud. His head didn't turn, but his body did. A slow, stiff pivot on his heels until he was facing me. His eyes were wide open, unblinking, and his mouth was stretched into a placid plastic smile. The kind you see on mannequins. He didn't speak. He just stood there, smiling that empty smile. My breath hitched. I pushed my cart faster, the screeching wheel now feeling like a beacon. Clunk, screech, I turned a corner and froze. There were more of them. Dozens, shoppers and employees, all standing perfectly still in the aisles. Some faced the shelves. Some faced each other. All of them wore that same fixed synthetic smile. A woman in a pink tracksuit had a hand resting on a package of paper towels, her body rigid, her smile beaming at the absorbent rolls. A man in the meat department was poised with a package of ground beef in his hand, his head cocked, smiling at the bloody styrofoam. They weren't moving. They were just placed there. My panic surged. I abandoned my cart and ran, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. I had to get out. I sprinted back towards the entrance, past the frozen food section. The hum of the freezers seemed louder now, a droning chant. The automatic doors didn't open. I slammed into the glass, my hands slapping against it. Through the doors I could see the parking lot, my car, the freedom of the night. But the doors were sealed shut. I pounded on them, screaming, "Let me out!" A reflection in the glass made me go cold. Standing behind me in a perfect semicircle were the Smilers. They had moved. silently. They now surrounded me, their blank eyes fixed on me, their identical smiles a terrifying mockery of welcome. The employee from the cereal aisle was at the front. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, his mouth opened, and a voice that was not a voice, a dry rustle like static from a dead channel, filled the silence. "Welcome to Walmart," it whispered. "We've been waiting for our last customer of the night." The circle of smiles tightened around me. I was their new greeter. The first time it happened, I thought I was hallucinating from exhaustion. It was 3 a.m. and I was the only one in the endless, brightly lit aisle of Walmart's craft section, staring at a wall of yarn. I needed one specific shade of navy blue to finish a project, a pathetic attempt to soothe my frayed nerves. As I scanned the shelves, a flicker of movement caught my eye from the next aisle over, the toy aisle. It was a little girl, no more than 6, in a pristine white dress that seemed to glow under the harsh lights. She was perfectly still, holding a porcelain doll that wore the exact same dress. I smiled weakly, assuming she was a lost customer's child, but then I blinked and she was gone. Not a sound of footsteps, no rustle of clothing. Just empty space, a cold knot tightened in my stomach. I shook my head, blaming the late hour and my 3rd cup of coffee. I found my yarn and hurried towards the front to check out. That's when I saw her again. This time she was at the far end of the grocery aisle, standing directly under a flickering light. She wasn't looking at the shelves. She was looking directly at me, her head tilted. The doll in her arms was also tilted, its glassy eyes fixed in my direction. A jolt of primal fear shot through me. I turned and power walked in the opposite direction, my heart hammering against my ribs. I decided to cut through Home Goods, thinking it was the fastest route to the registers. The air grew cold, a deep penetrating chill that made my breath mist in front of my face. I stopped, my skin prickling. This wasn't right. The store was climate controlled. I heard it then, a soft rhythmic click-clack sound. I turned slowly. She was sitting on a display couch, the one with the everyday low price tag. The doll was no longer in her arms. It was standing upright on the coffee table, its tiny porcelain hands moving, knitting with a pair of invisible needles. Click-clack, click-clack. The little girl looked at me, and her mouth opened. The voice that came out was not a child's. It was a chorus of dry, rustling whispers, like many leaves scraping against a window pane. "You're almost out of time," the whispers said. I stumbled backward, a scream caught in my throat. I ran, not caring about direction, just wanting to get away from that sound, that voice, that thing. I skidded around a corner and found myself back in the craft aisle right where I started. My lungs burned. The lights above me began to flicker violently, and with a series of pops they went out, plunging the aisle into darkness. The click-clack sound was closer now, right behind me. I squeezed my eyes shut, too terrified to turn around. The sound stopped. The whispering was right at my ear, icy and final. "Your project is finished." I felt a small, cold hand slip into mine. When I opened my eyes, the lights were back on. The aisle was empty. I was alone. I stood there, trembling for a full minute before I dared to look down. In my hand, clenched so tightly my knuckles were white, was the skein of navy blue yarn I had come for. But it was no longer new. It was old, brittle, and caked with what looked like decades of dust. And woven into its end in a crude, childlike stitch was a single word: mine.